going to be fun.
We are rolling.
Yeah.
By the way.
Sweet. Well, here we are, another episode of the Ice Team podcast. This one's awesome. The guy across from me, I've gotten to know for many years. You're like a mentor, and I mean that. Like, you've taught me so much stuff. This is Larry Hanson. A lot of you listen to his radio show on Sunday nights. I'll let him jump into that a little bit. Many of you listening and watching probably had him as a fishing guide in their lifetime at some point. He's been guiding on Minnetonka. How long?
Since 89.
How old were you in 89, Drew?
I was 5 years from being born.
I was 6.
It's 35 years then, right? Correct, yeah.
He is I would be honest to say he's the GOAT at Lake Minnetonka. Like, when people talk about Lake Minnetonka, Larry, with all due respect, they reference you quite often. Even all the corporate trips we do on the lake, and we got 20 guys and gals out there, the who's who of fishing, they're all like, Larry parts the Red Sea when he walks down those Lord Schlecter's docks.
I think,
guys, come on. Those are nice words.
Yeah.
any profession that you're at it for 35 years, you're doing something right.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't pick it. It picked me. And that was just part-time then.
Yeah.
In 2002, I lost my job.
Yeah.
59 of us lost our jobs without none of us doing anything wrong. And I couldn't find one. And it was my wife who, I was sitting on a chair. First off, I got 2 kids in college, 1 graduating, and another one going in, 3 daughters.
Oh, boy.
Okay. I could not find a job. Manufacturing took a huge hit back then. And my wife, HR person. Okay. So anyway, I'm sitting in a chair when she leaves for work, and I'm sitting in that chair when she got home, and she figured I never moved. And she's right. I was just in shock. I was just in shock that I could not find a job. And I wasn't looking to make what I was making. Just someone give me a chance and I would go forward. And all she did was put her hand on my shoulder and her face right here and said, just go do it. We'll be okay.
Yeah.
That's fact.
And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. She had to convince me, not the other way around.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, Larry, like, I've seen you in action and I've gotten to know you. And I mean this with all certainty. You're like one of the best guides I've ever met. And I say that because not only do you put people on fish, which is vitally important, right? You have to, everyone's like, oh, fishing is about catching a fish is a bonus. Come on. Mm-hmm. They got to catch fish. But you teach people, and you teach them with humility, and they always come back smiling and they love it. And you always look at like a true fishing guide, and you look at how they navigate the waters they guide on and what they do and what they teach people. You're like a jack of all trades. Always. And I always remember, like, when I started guiding on Minnetonka, Larry in your tiller, come rolling by with 3 people in his boat every day of the week. And every time those 3 people are smiling, laughing, learning something. And you told me a long time ago, and we'll keep moving into this. Mm-hmm. You gave me a tip years ago. You're like, fish the day. I don't know if you remember this. You were like, fish the day, because I wasn't catching any good bass. And you were like, have you tried taking them pike fishing? Mm-hmm. I remember you telling me, I'm like, why would I take anyone pike fishing?
Yeah, right.
And you're like, because they need the experience. Mm-hmm. Show them the experience. And I've always took that to heart. Like, many days on Tonka, I can't catch a bass. You and I have been out there, Drew, where we're like, we should give this up. You take them pike fishing, you take them pan fishing, and you show them a good time. You show them an experience. That's really the essence of a fishing guide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. And when Matt started showing up, he would come to me and just have a conversation. And he wasn't looking for spots. Okay, Matt wasn't looking. He was looking to have a conversation on what can I do to help my people.
Yep.
And that's how it worked.
Yeah.
Right.
It's fun.
And we had many conversations, corporate trips, and just through the years. But in the beginning, Matt, it was fun to help you out.
Mm-hmm. Now I do the corporate trips, and Larry just beats everybody.
I've seen it. I've seen you guys do a couple guide trips, and it seems like they're always smiling in Larry's boat.
Yeah.
The white tiller, right? That's I can see it across the bay. I'm like, yeah, they're smiling and they're catching fish.
Dang, you can see me.
I know. You need to get like a yacht for Minnetonka. You'll blend in really good.
Probably would blend in well.
Why are you in a fishing boat, man?
So
get a sailboat.
So back when I did start all this, I made a tagline: "I fish for smiles."
Yeah.
That's done. I've used it ever since, and because that's what it is. That's what turns my crank.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are, how old you are, how good you are, how bad you are. I see that smile. That just makes this just smile even more inside.
Yeah, like you were saying too, Matt, like you don't have to catch the target species for the day. Oftentimes I feel like on Minnetonka, you're thinking bass or potentially walleye now, but I've said many times on the podcast, I have had a really bad days bass fishing, and then I get bailed out by like catching a cool pike or like a bunch of crappies. I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of bluegills. Like, this is sweet. I got a little micro rod in my boat too, and have a blast.
Yeah.
And I'm not even being guided or
Yeah.
anything. I'm just like by myself, and it's fun.
But that's what it's about.
Yeah.
To me, I'm a smart aleck at times. People will say, what's your favorite fish? And I'll make them go through the whole list of fish. And then I'll go, no, the next one.
Yep.
That's my favorite fish, the next one.
It's like Dave Gens fishing for red lines, right?
Yeah.
Those Vexlar.
Yeah, red lines.
That's what he asked. What's your favorite species, Dave? Red lines.
Red lines. Yeah.
And he does.
He used that last Sunday.
I know, 100%.
He'll catch 4-inch perch
Yeah.
and go, cool. And then he'll catch a 10.5-inch bluegill and go, cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's just happy.
Yeah, he just catches everything that swims. I remember vividly, you took out the owner of Clam, and you guys won $80,000
$80,000, yeah,
towards a charity.
Yep.
And I remember that day because I had a decent day on the Tonka, and I'm thinking like I think I got third. I don't remember. I'm thinking like we might have done well here. Kind of feeling pretty good about it. I can see discouragement on other teams' faces and other guides like, nope. And I'm thinking like, boys, we might have done pretty well. Sandbagging Larry over there had beat us all by about 3 pounds that day. It wasn't even close. And I remember it happened to be, well, our management team here, our owner, Dave Osborne. And yeah, that was really cool. That's the partners group, the Foster's Partners Group deal they put on where all this money goes to charity. And that was pretty darn cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Yeah. That thing I think about year round.
Yeah.
Because of what good that these people are doing. We just happen to be the people to take them.
Yeah.
Right. And on that day, Dave kept asking me, there's no 5-pounders. I said, well, the lake is cycling.
Yeah.
It's still cycling.
Yeah.
Okay?
It is.
No, it is. How many 5-pounders do you catch in a year?
Not many.
No, it used to be a bunch. No, that kind of went away. And I kept telling him that. And then when we won it, then he goes, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, you got 13 of the best guides on this lake right here, man. And no one has one.
Yeah.
So
not to jump topics, but you said the lake was cycling. How many times have you seen Tonka in 30 plus years go from like being just a hammerfest lake for bass to, you're lucky to catch a 4-pounder in a full day type fishery? Like every decade ish?
Well, let's go back farther. So my bloodline goes back to 1853 on Tonka. You guys might not know this.
Explain.
My grandmother's grandparents settled on Stubbs Bay.
Prequel.
Yeah. And my grandfather was born in 1895 on Halstead's Bay. So the two farm kids fall in love. My mom was born on Crystal Bay in 1926. She's still with us. She's 98 years old.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. And she's not in a home. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. She can walk and talk and tell you everything you want to know.
So eating all them Tonka fish helped.
Yeah, right. And then,
Were the lakes all connected back then? I don't understand how it all. I know there's channels and stuff.
Right, and they did dredge them out. My mom grew up on Seton Channel. Okay, third house from the point. That would be, and that got torn down. The original
apartments now.
Nope. When you're, nope. It's on the Seton side of the.
Oh, towards the gas pumps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you go at Seton itself and then come back in the channel, so you got the gray house, the bigger tall house, and then the next house. The next house where my mom grew up at. And my grandma died in 79, my grandpa died in 80. And they were the first 12 people hired at Tonka Toy in 1948.
Jeez.
Okay. Yeah. So I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't help it. It's just how my life was. I can't help it that I had grandparents, not rich people. They just lived on the lake.
Yeah.
And my dad's parents lived on the Mississippi River.
Wow.
What can I say?
Pretty blessed there.
Yeah. Both ways. Just what were you doing?
Yeah.
Learning to mess around on the river. You learn to mess around on the lake.
So do you go to the river to clear your head? Because the Tonka puts a lot into our heads.
Yeah, but I've been used to traffic. I guess that's
Yeah.
You know, when you had grandparents that lived on the channel, I mean, it was constantly busy. And those docks weren't like that. It was in 75, my brother had a jet boat with a 454 in it, okay? And he parked it there, and the city of Mound didn't like how he did it.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of won,
Yeah.
right? You used to have a cutout into your land, and then that's where you had to put your boat. My grandparents just had a little dock with a swing on it. That was it.
Yeah.
There was nothing else on Seton Channel. Everything was cut into the land there. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I wonder why they don't do that. You don't see that many places. I see some Wisconsin lakes still do that.
Yeah.
They have like their own little jetty up on the
that's
land,
right.
and they
Yep.
put their. Yeah, but that Tonka doesn't do that at all anymore.
No. That all went away, but it was my brother. And I hate it. I hate those docks and boats sitting there.
Yeah.
Because you had this nice big wall. Even the end fishermen, the year my grandfather passed away,
Yeah.
they have a picture of Al casting right down in front of my grandparents' place. Okay? There's no docks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 1980. That's something I'll never forget. I'm going through it and going, whoa, he's on Seton, Al Linder's on Seton Channel.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
So,
Yeah. I can't imagine Tonka without docks.
oh, man.
Well, I
You got a
mean,
lifetime.
like taking it back to like your grandparents' age, like that was where people went out of town, like from Minneapolis, was like the lake. Like their cabins were on Minnetonka. Like
Yeah.
times have just changed, obviously, in the past hundreds of years, but holy smokes.
And Tonka, well, it was Waconia that they used to collect the ice from, right?
And Tonka.
And Tonka,
too.
they'd go
Yep.
and cut ice, and they would actually go pillage ice from the lake. And
Yep.
I think it was Greg Schrader telling me that story, where because he's a mailman, I think for Lake City of Waconia,
Okay.
and he would say that they would come and cut ice out of the lake and by semi-load bring it back into the city, quote unquote, and that's crazy.
So how was the fishing back then? Did you ever
Oh,
hear fish stories?
The fishing was great.
All
Fishing
species?
was great. Not all species. Mostly pike.
Mm-hmm.
There were always bass there, but people weren't really chasing them. It just didn't happen. Okay. And of course, a lot of panfish and crappies and an occasional walleye. My uncle caught in Browns Bay in '62. He caught a 12-4 walleye.
Walleye.
Yeah.
So they've been there
Yeah.
for the existence of the lake.
Yeah. But my grandpa's up there smiling at what we do
Yeah.
on the lake today.
They're all gone now. So if
Okay.
you're listening,
Yeah.
there's no more walleyes in Minnetonka.
No.
No,
they're
they're
completely gone.
No.
So
Okay.
go someplace else.
Yeah.
So they obviously stock walleyes a lot in Minnetonka now, but it was probably pretty darn good, let's say 50 years ago, like with the lack of milfoil and all that. Like it's
Well, so I got to teach people about this too. So curly leaf pondweed. My
Yeah.
grandfather would tell my brother and I, he called it pickerel weed. Boys, by the time the middle of June, it's going to go away.
June bloom.
Okay? That's how many years? A guy born
So
on
it's been
Halstead's
like
Bay
that.
is telling us in the 60s
It's going to go, yeah.
it's going to go away just because that's how it does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's an invasive species. I don't know how we get from something that's been there over a century.
Yeah.
Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Yes,
I
it
don't
does.
know.
Yeah, so-
But when the milfoil came in the middle 80s,
Mm-hmm.
that changed the lake
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah.
It started cleaning it up. It used to have an aroma, especially in August, and the whole lake looked like West Arm.
Oh,
Not like Halstead's, West Arm.
yeah.
So that was green like
Yeah.
that all the way through the system. And
Really?
then that just started filtering out. And they also stopped, especially on the Excelsior side, they had red algae, and that comes from septic systems. And once they got rid of the septic systems, Mother Nature started taking care of itself. There were no loons. There were no loons until the middle 80s.
Now they're everywhere.
And that's because they got a sea to eat.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that I give that to, yes, they stopped the septic systems, but the milfoil was filtering out the rest.
Yeah.
And imagine there's a lot more, or a lot less farm fields running off into the lake in the last 50 years.
Oh,
too.
yeah, yeah.
I know that, like in southern Minnesota out west too, it's just like crazy the algae blooms you get
Mm-hmm.
from all the the fertilizer and stuff running off.
So there was a gal that I forget her name, but she wrote a book on Minnetonka. Remember the gal? I read it. It was a really, really well-known book. It really went into the history of like the Arcola Bridge and Enchanted Island and all the different things. It was kind of neat. I forget the gal's name. We were talking about it on one of our corporate trips, and I got my hands on one and read it. I didn't own it, and it was really intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it told us the history of the different. There used to be a carousel on Big Island, and an amusement park, call it, and all these things that when you tell people this on a guide trip, because you give them an experience, they're just like, no way.
Yes.
And, and we fished the Boneyard.
Mm-hmm.
Really good spot where stuff's been drugged to and laid to rest, right? So, I mean, did they frequent any of that stuff?
Yeah. My mom?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My grandpa got her a wooden boat, but it was made to row.
Yeah.
And her 2 friends would. So where the Narrows is, that wasn't there. So Old Channel Bay, and then you come back out onto Lafayette. You go way back in. It comes out to 19. Kurt calls it Hay 19.
Yeah.
That's the original channel.
Sure.
And so they would row. The 3 of them would take turns rowing, and they'd go to Excelsior Amusement Park for the day, and then it would take them a long time to row back. But
yeah,
life jacket,
No, yeah.
Okay, no.
No seatbelts either.
Yeah, no, no. And see, I got 3 books. I should show it to him. I got one that goes back to 1850 is where this one starts. And then I have one that's on Mound and one on Navarre. But the one that goes all the way back, there were huge resorts on the lake in the 1900s. Massive.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Massive. Just like you would see in today's world when the resort world was big, but these were monster things. People came by horse, okay, and had their vacation on the lake, and then the amusement park was there, of course. And then
crazy.
It's like Gull.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar.
Huh.
Very similar.
Yeah.
And now you're just trying to avoid wake boats
Yeah.
as you drag jig worms.
Oh, there's none of those out there.
Oh, man.
There's I think there's some stuff starting to kind of. I think a resort on Minnetonka would flourish to this. I think it would this day still if they offered something, because I get that asked. You probably get it more than me. Is there a place for me to stay on the lake? Is there a place for me to? I mean, like, and there's some things in the works coming out. I know, but like, I'd always thought, like, man, you do a resort there, people can crash and hang out, and people are coming from all over to hang out because there's so much to do.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're 10 minutes from Minneapolis.
Yeah. And you could come back to your place, take your pontoon out that you rented for the weekend, do your thing, hit up some of the restaurants, Lord Fletcher's on the lake, and I think it's wonderful.
So where Rock Fams was, that little stretch there, there used to be 11 bars and a casino.
A casino on Tonka?
Casino, yeah.
Wow.
And Murray's downtown used to be a casino. Okay.
That is crazy.
Isn't it crazy?
There's so much deep history to that lake. It's wild. Like when you think of how many, like the people that have been on the lake, the people that still live on the lake, the amusement parks, all that stuff. And like right now, when I think of Minnetonka, this might be just me. I think of the wake boats and like, rich people mansions and stuff like that and bass fishing, but it's so much more.
Oh yeah.
Like when I drive around, I kind of like the historical fact of all the lakes and stuff. And I'm always thinking like, man, when was this channel dredged? Like who did this? Like who planned this stuff out? Like, did they think it would be like it is now?
Yeah. There's an insane amount of history on that lake. And you can tell by looking at some of the structures and things and bays, and you're like,
tunnels.
What was this like 85 years ago? And it's very intriguing. And I know that there's groups out there. There's even some groups on Facebook that are like specific to Minnetonka.
Yeah.
And the history they talk about and the things that have changed and evolved over the years. And the crazy, how many cities touched that lake?
13.
13. I was going to say, I thought it was 12. There's 13 different cities that touch that lake.
Yeah. And Minnetonka itself only has like 40 acres of Lake Minnetonka, something like that.
Wow.
It's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Grays Bay.
It sets up perfect for what you guys do with guiding. I think the location, it's a good sized lake and it is just chock full of fish. Like I'm always mind blown how many, like the biomass of like just bluegills you see on that lake. like wherever you go, it's just like, how are there this many fish in this lake?
The diversity is what
You know?
intrigues me.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because everyone thinks of it as a lake. We think of it as multiple lakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the west side, let's call it Halstead's Bay, and then you fish the east side, let's call it Wayzata Bay. We don't even go to Grays. Night and day. The water clarity, the weed growth, the structure, the way the fish react. And the cool thing about Tonka for me that I like, why it intrigues me as a guide, is if I'm on a certain body of water and the fish just aren't going that day, the conditions aren't right, you're on struggle bus. Yeah. You just are. Where Tonka, you can adapt to a completely different scene, meaning water temp, or water clarity, structure, fish behavior, species. Like, you may have to adapt a bit out there, but you can generally get on something. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's you'd have to go out there and really struggle to have a completely bomb day, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Not to toot our own horns. It's just I believe in that.
Yeah. You have enough spots, enough places, enough variety. Okay, and the thing that you need to put in there yet is current.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Still, a lot of people have no idea that there's current in Lake Minnetonka.
Yes.
And there is.
The bridges in the wintertime will show you that too. And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
People hopefully don't fall through this year, but it is somewhat common where people think they can drive through those bridges. Mm-hmm. And to your point, like, there's always moving water in those bridges.
Yeah. And that was pounded into my head as a little kid. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Don't you dare. You know, my grandpa would make a skating rink for us. Don't you dare go to the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. That was no joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't you dare, man.
Yeah. Talk about current a little bit on Minnetonka, because some of our listeners are probably going, what? Yep. Why is there current? They're probably thinking right away, like, how is that? Like, there's a system that goes through Lake Minnetonka. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
So Halstead's Bay has 6 Mile Creek coming in. So it's on the other side of 7. It goes through a few lakes, and then it goes under 7, and it comes in. All right. Then you have Painter's Creek in Jennings Bay, but it doesn't have a whole lot of current in it, but it's there. Okay. And then you have culverts everywhere. Even Tanager has water coming into Tanager. But now when the water is higher, I'm going to give out I'm going to give something away.
The juice here.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He's so hesitant right now. I can tell.
So if we slide through the Arcola Bridge and slide out into Smith's Bay, okay, and if you look to Lafayette Bay, so what's that? We got a gap.
Yep.
So now that's 2 things coming together. So we got current coming from Crystal. We got current coming from Lafayette. All right. Now, if you take it out a little farther, you can hit current coming from Gideon's and Excelsior. And there are days, Matt, if you see me kind of just sitting there and you go, what's he doing? It all has to do with current.
Yeah.
And then it can go, once the current slows down, fish move. They go back to wherever they've been. But you can hit all 3 spots. And you got, and that's why Arcola is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You can even see the weeds
moving a little bit.
Yep. Leaning.
Yeah.
And that's, why do people fish the Arcola Bridge? Well, it's not just because it's structure. It's because there's current there. Current,
bait fish, all kinds of things.
Yep.
And then obviously you have the Minnehaha Creek where it goes into out. And there was, some of our listeners probably heard of that big sturgeon that was caught by them kids. Now,
I wanted to ask you about
do you think I'll let you touch on it because you're a sturgeon freak, but like sturgeon, Minnetonka, like.
Well, okay, so the legend of Lou. My grandfather talked about the legend of Lou, and then in my lifetime, that kind of went away. Yeah. And Johnny Range would bring it up every now and then.
I love Johnny Range.
Yeah, isn't he great, man? We put in 11,000 more walleyes back in end of October and November. I'm part of the West Tonka Walleye Program.
Yep.
Yes, we put in another 17,000 walleyes again. 8 to 13 inches.
Yeah. Research Johnny Range if you're listening and you haven't. You need to. He's done a lot of great things for the fishery.
He's changed it, man. It's all him and his neighbor. I just happen to be a guy that he called in the beginning, and I just helped him. I don't take any credit. He did all the work, and he hasn't spent a dime. except on a little advertising. He doesn't take any money from it. It all goes back into buying those walleyes. And that's almost 400,000 walleyes in 10 years.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a couple of them.
Yeah. We're all benefiting from what he's done.
Agreed.
All of us.
All right, Legend of Lou.
Yep.
Yes, sturgeon.
Yeah.
Drew loves sturgeon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had to be there. Okay. So we got Minnetonka Falls, right?
Mm-hmm.
But who knows what millennia before all of this, right? They're there. They got to be there. And off of, in front of, this is maybe, 2012, somewhere in there. So the Minnetonka Yacht Club come out, and then there's some series of smaller little structures out there. Okay. And one of my guys who happened to be from the University of Minnesota, and he was assistant dean at the Carlson College, he got something on that I chased that thing for like 40 minutes. Never putting in my head until those kids caught that sturgeon. Finally had to let it go. 6-pound test line, and I'm just having them back reel and try to. It's not moving, man, but it's swimming just
big, deep, pulsing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I caught a 72-incher on Red Wing in 21.
Large.
Okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a full-grown sturgeon right there.
Yeah. Anyway, on 8-pound test, by the way. Ooh. But yeah, so when those kids caught that one, and I went, and then a guy fishing there, he had film of it going over the dam and back over the dam.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, then it for sure came from the. Well, it obviously came from the lake. It did not go up Minnetonka Falls unless someone somehow.
No, but I'm saying, how many thousands of years prior to that, there wasn't a falls. That was all.
But can they spawn? I mean, I guess if there's
It
two
takes
in
them.
there.
Yeah, but it takes 25 years before they spawn.
Yeah, yeah, and they're pretty goofy spawners too. The stars need to align, from what I understand, for sturgeon to spawn.
I don't know much about them. I've caught a bunch, but
I don't know much. I've fished them mostly on the Rainy River, where it sets up great for sturgeon fishing. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a handful in Tonka just swimming around. Like why wouldn't there be? If there's one that big, even if someone put it there a long time ago, they probably put a couple more, and they're probably living.
you think you think people would see them with forward-facing sonar and stuff because they're pretty distinguishable. But look at the water that gets untouched on that lake.
Oh my God!
I mean, a sturgeon's not going up into the weeds.
They like to.
No.
Have you ever
with the
heard-
zeebs? They can suck up a lot of zeebs quick.
Have you
Yeah.
heard them
Okay.
like porpoising or jumping ever, or ever heard like a big slap? Because they do that on the Rainy and in like Ottertail Lake. When I was up there doing the walleye thing, like you could see sturgeon everywhere. Just come up, break the surface, and go back down. Like you'd think people would see one randomly.
I'm sure we've seen it, but we're thinking it's
You're not even
something
looking.
else. Yeah, we're not even looking. I think see, that's a big fish.
Oh,
Yeah.
carp.
It must be.
Blame a carp.
Or a
Blame
mussel.
everything on a carp.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a carp.
And
Yeah. Well, that one those kids wrangled in Minnetonka Creek, that was a big sturgeon. Like that is an adult.
oh man,
So that thing was living in Tonka for, I don't know, 50 plus.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
because there's no way it's gonna live in water that deep
Not a
in
chance.
the
Yeah.
It's going to freeze
wintertime.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I would bet there's more, and I bet you as technology grows, as we've seen, people are going to see some of these fish. Because I had a client hook a fish similar to your situation a couple of years ago. We were fishing Arcola, or not Arcola, Echo. You go down you go through Echo from Lafayette, deep point there to your left when you're facing south, and we're fishing out the end of that, and they're casting, and I saw a giant like mark on active target 1. Big mark, musky-ish size mark. And this kid chucks in there with the Ned rig and he hooks something. And it did. I remember everything in my being going, it's fighting just like us. I mean, it wasn't running. It was just solid thuds, and it was
he doesn't even
100%
know.
a fish. 100% a fish. I mean, it wasn't it was zzz. And this rod, 15, 20-pound braid, loaded. And he fought this thing for 10 minutes. And the reason I thought of sturgeon, when you mentioned your comment, is I actually had to take the boat off spot lock because it was trying to move us.
Okay.
And it came off.
Yeah.
And I remember, what do you think that was? And I'm like, I don't know. And tail hooked a carp is kind of what I told the kid. You might have tail, but I'm thinking it never made that big zzz, like if you snag a carp, it's angry.
Yeah.
It's spooling you. This thing wasn't doing that.
He doesn't even know he's hooked.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I remember vividly that was
intriguing.
one moment where I'm like,
I mean, you get the deep water, so many bays, current, sturgeon like current. Like you'd think one would survive there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if one found its way there, he's going to live.
They've had it made.
It's just, are they going to spawn?
Untouched and
Yeah.
If anyone listening feels like they ever came into encounter with the sturgeon on Minnetonka, let us know.
Yeah,
Because we're intrigued now. You know, it's like you talk about like untouched. There was a handful of years ago. Remember the walleye I netted dead? Were you there during the corporate trip? The 35-incher that we gave to the DNR?
No.
So I was leaving West Arm, going into West Arm from Fletcher's. We had an hour to kill.
Okay.
Corporate guy trip. And I'm like, I'll go check a spot. It was the dead of summer. It was hot. I was actually kind of getting my butt whooped out on Tonka. And I'm going through the no-wake zone, going towards Fagerness Point, and here comes this object floating in the water. It's just floating. And I kind of, every angler in the world wants to see what's floating dead. It's just how we are. So I putz over. I'm kind of by myself, and I'm like, oh, that's a big old carp. And I'll go look at it, and I get closer. I'm like, that's a walleye. So I do what any amazing angler would do and scoop up a dead fish. Put this thing in the bottom of the boat. I'm like, I've never seen a fish of this caliber. It was massive. Never seen one this big in my lifetime. And I'm like, so I turned back around to the docks, and I remember texting Josh Roundsley, the owner of Thorn Brothers. I was working at Thorn Brothers at the time. This was pre-clam. And I'm like, dude, I got like, I don't know how big, a 12, 15-pound walleye in my boat right now. And put your Thorn shirt on and get a picture. I'm like, oh, no, dude, he's dead. I'm not doing, okay. I'm like, I just needed to call somebody, and I'm like, this thing's huge. And I bring it back, and I remember I pull up to the docks at Fletcher's, and all these people come running down like, oh my gosh, just starting to stink. One side was all chewed up. This thing was like 34 and a half inches long.
My gosh.
And it was so big around that I couldn't imagine. And we ended up gifting it to the DNR to do some research, this and that. And they don't think it's ever been caught.
No.
They don't think that fish was ever caught by a human.
I believe that.
And the craziest thing about that story is like 5 days later, Patrick Smith was working at Thorn, texts me, and he's like, dude.
Dark-haired guy.
Yeah, check your phone. Yeah. I'm like, what? Just netted a dead 31 and a half inch walleye in West Arm.
What time of year was this?
Middle of summer.
It's got hot.
So like the two biggest walleyes I know of that I've ever seen or heard of on Lake Minnetonka, we each netted floating dead.
A few days apart.
Both of which the consensus is died of old age, hadn't been caught. And the theory of it is, talking to my buddies, DNR, biologists, friends that do this stuff from other states, just getting feelers, they think they were a couple.
Wow.
What?
I'm dead serious. They think they were a couple. The one died, the other one died too.
Like a pair? Like
correct.
They're just friends?
Sure.
And they,
two females, obviously.
And they lived together their entire life. They lived in that deep West Arm water. They ate shad because there's some various types of forage in that part of the lake, and they think they never saw the light of day.
That
believable or not, I mean, I know what I saw, and I know the fish that was in my boat. It was almost unbelievably big, dead. And you go, huh.
And it shrunk.
Yeah. Okay. And this fish could have been 15-pound class walleye in Lake Minnetonka if somebody caught it alive.
Wow. I believe that there's giant walleyes in Minnetonka. We were talking like 2 years ago. I was like, my goal is to catch a 30-inch walleye. And then I'm like thinking, like, where am I going to do that? And I'm like, it's probably going to be on Minnetonka.
Yeah.
Because you hear about them. There's enough ground to cover. There's enough stuff that people can't fish for whatever reason. And like ice fishing, a lot of it doesn't get hit. Like you can't. It's impossible.
What's the biggest walleye you've seen on Tonka, Larry?
Besides my uncle's?
Yeah.
I've seen some 10s.
Yeah.
30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never had one.
What's your uncle's?
That 12.4, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a 32-inch fish, probably.
Yeah.
32, 33-inch fish at that.
He caught it through the ice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's full of eggs. Okay.
That stuff intrigues me. I mean, and you hear about the guys that talk about state record bass that swear on their life they've seen them multiple times and with their own eyes. that fishery probably has fish in it that we can't even fathom.
I think, especially on the bass side, I think a lot of them in those weeds never move out until the ice comes. And so they never see a lure. They're too smart to go after one.
Yeah.
But they're nailing everything going through, just like those ladies there.
Yeah.
Okay, that there's no doubt that they were just the queens of eating there. And plus it's in the fertile part of the lake. Except for Hull says, but
stuff intrigues me.
Matt, so you
That's
said
cool, man.
the two you saw were West Arm, and you think they're eating
Floating.
shad potentially. So those are like offshore type bait balls. Like no one would ever catch those fish outside of when they're up shallow, maybe at night or during the spawn.
And these fish were
by accident,
pre forward facing sonar, where anyone could find them. And you look at the crappies you see caught, like the Crappie Chronicles, for example, the quality of fish they caught. Those fish didn't show up in the last few years.
No.
16, 17, 18-inch crappies have been in our systems for decades and decades, and no one ever caught them. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's not like all of a sudden the last few years, oh my gosh, there's 16-inch crappies in the metro. No, they've been there the whole time. They just don't get touched.
That's right.
They don't get caught. No one knows how to chase them. And I bet you what's going to happen here in short order is those caliber of fish are going to they're going to evolve into knowing how to adapt with the new technology. And once again, they'll be tough to catch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they feel that pinging, they're gone.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel that trend?
Or here, I think so.
I mean, you've been doing this a long time. And
I think a lot of that stuff here, even, we forget about forward facing. Even in the channels, I just run one locator. Because it's pinging off especially with side imaging, it's just bouncing all over the place. No, turn it off because you're going to shut those fish off. You are.
You guys hear that, the listeners? Turn off your locators. I mean, I don't disagree. I've seen it where you point your forward-facing sonar at a school of crappies. Now in a pressured metro lake, they move.
See, they're used to it.
They move away.
Like the Elite Series and MLF, like guys will be spot locked looking at a school smallmouth, and they'll cast their Ned rig in there, and then the moment they see that they're dropping on them, they'll just turn their transducer quick, like thinking that it might deter the fish from biting. They just fish it naturally because they know they're in the strike zone. It's like, all right, we're going to make them bite. They don't need that extra pinging.
Yeah. We were just talking about this off record right before we went on to the podcast here about forward facing sonar. And, I get clients that we know they're there. We know what to do. Turn it off and go do it. Right. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to is sometimes we get so reliant on the technology. And I think now the fish, I'm a firm believer, if you watch the teams in the UPL, I mean, they will find the fish with forward-facing sonar. It's a very powerful tool to find. And that they turn it off. Or they point it towards another team. We now have changed rules in our league to avoid some of that. But that used to happen. They would get into the school. They would have other teams around them. They'd find the school. They'd turn their deucer towards the team next to them. And it actually deterred that school of fish from at least slowing down and holding in that area. And I think you're right. I think they can sense that. Now they know it's something not good. It's danger. Yeah, last time I felt that, Bob, Cindy Lou, and Larry went missing out of the school. What the heck? Well, that feels like danger.
Yeah, exactly. So a few years ago when I fished with you and you had some guys and we all went crappie fishing. It was end of April. And I go into a bay. You guys went to another bay. I went with you first, and then I left and went into another bay, and they had that tournament out there.
Yeah.
So I had in that bay, I don't want to say, sorry, everybody. In that bay I found fish in 17 feet. I'm the only one in there, and those fish, and I don't have forward facing. Those fish kept moving closer to shore. Okay, now they're in 12 feet. Well, anyway, boat after boat that came in there, and which was really nice, nobody ever cut in front of me. And if I could thank all those guys who were in that, they never went in front of me. They always went around me. But that shut that school off. And there were like 8 boats. And they would mess around, and they could see them, but they weren't biting. All right? As soon as they all left, and I never left for 3+ hours, and we had one 13 and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
So that just told me right there that you guys got to learn a little more about maybe turning that off and use your skills otherwise to find these fish. Or catch them anyway, but they shut that school off. I just hung around long enough to.
Those boats weren't cutting you off because you were the Gestapo. You're the Gestapo of Lake Minnetonka. They knew better. They're like, they're like, we that's Larry. Just go around them.
No, it was no, and there was a lot of room between me and the docks. They could have, but no. And I thank them. No one did that to me, and I normally that would just people don't care.
Yeah.
No, those tournament guys just.
Yeah. The crappies on Tonka are weird. One of the craziest bites I had on Tonka for crappies, really good crappie lake, enjoyable crappie lake of all sizes. You want a meal, you can do it. You want to try to shoot at a big one, you have a chance there too. And it's diverse. If you can't find a spot to fish, look again, right? There shouldn't be 40 guys on one spot. There's other spots, but I remember we had a bite out there one time in like 25 feet of water right below the surface in April. And I remember the only way I found it, I was with Bartusik. I was with Adam Bartusik. And we're sitting there and it started to snow again. It was late April. We had a weird cold a handful of years ago. And I remember it was like a frustration cast. I'm like, none of these fish are up against these deeper docks. They're not up against the bank. The water cooled off. This is going to be a tough day. We're cold. We're miserable. We're the only idiots on the lake that day. I remember it was blowing, snowing, and it was the day 2 of the bite that we filmed. And I turned around to the middle of this bay and I just chucked my bobber rig out there. I'm like, I need to reset. Plunk. Bobber goes straight down. And Bart's like spins around and he goes, did you just get one over there in the middle of that basin? I'm like, yeah, it was small. It was an 8-incher. I'm like, yeah, dude. Okay. He's like, it's like 25 feet. I turn around and I had forward facing sonar. It was the first year I had it. I turn around and I point out that way and I'm like, dude, there's 100 of them out there right below and what it was, I'm sure, was the water.
It's warmer up.
It was warmer, sure. And I should have thought about that, but I turn around and right below the surface, 2, 3, 4 feet down in 26 feet of water, there's the school of crappies.
Cool.
And I remember thinking like, this is, and we sat there,
cool, man.
Caught crappies. They weren't big, but right below the surface, right in the middle of the basin.
It's funny. You think like spring crappies, shallow, warm water, but like all winter we're chasing them over like deeper holes, and at times, and then boom, ice goes away. And then like, okay, it's going to be a little bit warmer up in that upper layer of water. And if they don't want to be against the bank, why wouldn't they be out there?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was so intriguing. And I remember that day, the few boats we did see came into that bay just to check it out. It's a popular bay early season. And they did what we did. They kind of hugged the docks and pitched up against the riprap and stuff. Because the day before and the week before, that's where they were. And everyone drove right over the entire school of crappies and did what they thought they knew. And that to me, that's fish. That's what's fishing is so cool.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes it tick for me.
You never dreamed in a million years.
No.
And you just randomly zinged it out there.
Yeah.
I had one, this is not Minnetonka, this is up north, where I was early springtime thing, like before they were up against the bay. And I was in my little 14-foot tin boat. All I had was 2D sonar. And I'm like putting around like the middle of this lake and it's like 50 feet deep. And I just see like bait busting. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like it's cold out. And I had a jigging wrap tied on, like a little small one at the time, bombed it right into it and dunk, got like a 12.5-inch crappie. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that is weird, right? I'm thinking I'm going to be going against the bank with a little tube and a bobber. And I proceeded to just bang up on big crappies. I was driving around at that point with my 2D just looking for like the massive bait ball. And they were like piranhas just chasing to the top. It was wild.
Cool.
Yeah. What lake was that?
If you want to come fish with me, you can come hang out. Yeah. We can do stuff.
Pay me $400 and I'll take it.
Yeah, it wasn't Tonka, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah, crappies are. I think crappies. I'm addicted to. I like fishing them year round. I mean, we should talk a little ice fishing on Tonka too.
Time out. Can I ask what's the biggest crappie you guys have seen on Minnetonka?
I know mine. Go for it.
And go ahead, because
I saw an old timer catch a 19-incher in Harrison's Bay in 2004.
A hybrid?
I've never seen one.
I was guiding in there. There was a bunch of boats, And if you go into Harrison Bay on the far west end, there's a couple little boat channels where you can probably get 3, 4, 5 boats in each one. And I was in there. I had 2 clients. I had my 1750 fish hawk, and spot lock didn't exist. I had 2 anchors down, and everyone kind of shared space so they could have their docks to fish. And we were catching 8, 9, 10-inch crappies, once in a while 11, but it was just constant action. And my 2 guys were having a hoot. And this guy, probably about 80 years old, comes in with a, 16-foot tiller. He comes putzing in by himself, and he kept trying to get in on somebody. And everyone was starting to get frustrated. And they're like, dude, come on, man. There's no, sorry, bud. Like, there's no room. There's not room for another boat in between any of us. So he goes to the south side of this bank. So south side of the bank, rocky shoreline. All odds are against you. This is April, right? Everybody knows the north side. Go to the wood. Go to the dark. So this guy kind of putts to the other side and drops an anchor, and he throws a bobber line out there, and he's fishing and whatever. And one of my client looks at me and he goes, "Hey man, like that dude, that grumpy old guy got something, and it's splashing." So, I remember, because I think a lot of people felt bad after this happened, and it's splashing, and everyone's, "Oh, we got a bass or whatever." And he nets this fish, and he holds it up, and I hear one of the boats down from me go, "Hey, Matt." I knew the guy from some of the bass tournaments, and he's like, "Check out the crappie that dude just caught." And everybody turns around, and the guy's holding it with all 4 fingers in its mouth.
Wow.
Holding it up like this, and everybody's just dropping their jaw. Like, you got to be kidding me. And the guy in the bass boat that called over to me he's like, "Dude, nice fish." And the old timer's kind of putzing, looking around the boat, and, "What are you going to do with it?" And the guy's like, "I'm going to throw it back, too big to eat," and they go over and they weigh it, 4-1.
Jeez.
Wow. It was a 4-1, 19-inch crappie, probably a hybrid. I mean, this was before I really studied all this stuff.
Wow.
4 pounds, 1 ounce on his digital scale. Now, the scale could have been a little off. I don't care. Let's call it 315.
A 19-inch.
Let's call it 315 even, right? It's probably not off by more than a couple ounces if it is. And he puts his hands up and does the symbol 4 and 1, and like people started clapping. You know what the guy did? Threw it right over the side of the boat back into the water.
Oh my! Wow!
And he said it's too big to eat. That one would taste like mud.
He's probably caught some like that before then.
Yeah, he threw it. He didn't
God.
hesitate. He threw it right back in the water. You're talking an absolute fish of a lifetime. And he just chucked it right back. And I think he was going to throw it back until the guy came over to weigh it. He was like, "What are you doing?" Like, "I'll just weigh that fish. How big is it?" And everybody stopped fishing the docks, and they're all watching this guy weigh this guy's fish. And he puts his hands up and gives us the 4-1 symbol, and everyone starts clapping. Dude throws it right back in the drink. Biggest crappie to this day I've ever seen was that crappie in Harrison's Bay. Will be 21 years ago this spring.
Wow. The
Monster.
biggest one I ever saw was my dad, and was on Vermilion, and it went from his tips of his finger to here.
Yeah.
Okay. So I run to go get this. We're in. Okay. Boat's tied up. We're in, going to fillet the stuff, but we want to weigh that one. Went through the tackle boxes and found the de-lier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get to the cleaning shack. He already cleaned it.
Oh.
So never knew, but I don't know, 17. I don't know. That's the biggest fish I ever saw, but I've never seen
smokes.
on Tonka. I've never personally seen one over 15.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, Matt.
Yeah. We had a couple clients get a 15 and 15 and a half a few years ago on Tonka. And there was a popular bay, people around us. There was one milfoil clump that held all the big ones, and we put them in the live well. And all my clients know me. Like, any crappie over 13 does not go in a live well, does not go in a bucket on the ice. That's my rule. Any bluegill over 10, it's got to go back. It's just my rule. And you want a replica? No problem. And so we boxed this 15 and 15 and a half. They were caught within 45 seconds of each other.
Wow.
And my clients were like, "What do you?" I'm like, "We're going to get pictures, but not here.
Yeah.
There's too many people around to see what's going on." And people are kind of looking at us. People are getting closer and closer because we're really catching them good. We're catching them all on hair. They didn't want a live minnow. They didn't want a plastic. And everybody around us couldn't figure that out. So I'm like, people are starting to get close. So I remember we went on the next, we're done fishing. Day's over. I'm like, all right, let's go over make a move, and we'll go over by a handful of really big houses, obvious houses in the background, and we'll talon down and we'll take our pictures.
There we go.
Classic play.
So we go all the way.
It is.
And
you got to do that
first.
You got to
learn that
do
from him.
Yeah, and if Mike Fighton's listening, you were in the boat with me, you know exactly, and Alan, you know exactly what's going to happen next. So we go over there. I mean, these are big fish.
Yeah.
Real big fish, 2-pound class fish, and we get really good pictures, beautiful houses in the background, whatever. And we go back and let them go. And I'm out there again the next day. There was 3 boats in front of those big houses
already. Yeah.
I kid you not.
Social media.
And there wasn't a fish anywhere near those. Maybe there was. Maybe I'm eating crow and those guys caught giants. Probably not. There were literally 3 boats in front of those houses the next day, milling around, trying to see if there was a bite there, because they're that savvy on, I know exactly what those houses are, where they are, what. And I laugh to this day. I'm like, yeah, every time I go by those houses, I tell that story. Oh, we caught some crappies and funny. But yeah, those were 2 of the biggest ones I saw in Tonka and they were literally
cool, man.
within 2 casts of each other for these guys.
Fun.
Real
man.
big ones. And,
The biggest bass that I've seen in Minnesota personally was the one from the Blackfish Classic.
Right,
Chris
8-pounder?
Shields. Yeah, that thing was a stud.
And that thing, I'm sure I didn't get to, analyze it. Let's put it this way. I'm sure that thing had never been caught. That A2, the one a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Just the head on the thing when he pulled it out of the live well, I was like, what in Lord's name is that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen fish that big down in Florida, but up here, not a chance. Different animal.
No.
Yeah.
So on the sunfish side of life, a 9 or 10 inch sunny takes 10 years. It takes 10 years for it to grow. In that time, we can raise 3 trophy bucks. That's why it's important to put those big sunfish back. I don't know what it is for a crappie. It's got to be older too, but a sunfish itself, and that's a male. And in the freshwater world, the ladies are the big ones.
Yes.
But not the sunfish.
Yeah, I know up in like Bemidji or like the northern part of the state, some of those sunfish up there, when they start getting that giant forehead on them, you're like, this is a different animal than the stunted ones I'm used to catching.
Yeah.
This thing took a while to get there. And then practicing that the catch and release is so important on those big ones. It takes time.
Yeah.
Like you said, 10 years, that's a decade.
Yeah.
Like there's been 3 generations of those things since you've been guiding on Tonka, and you've been doing it for half your life.
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's what it takes to get a 10 inch.
Think of that 15 or that 34 inch walleye or whatever that Matt saw. Wow. That's an old fish to die of old age.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, no, that's some crazy stuff. So Larry, tell us about your experience ice fishing on Tonka, because we actually have just gone through 54 minutes on the Ice Team podcast, not even touching ice.
Okay.
We haven't even talked ice fishing yet.
I know, sorry. I had my kids' school call me.
That's part of the game,
Principal,
Dad.
and everything's fine, but I was like, that's a school number. I'm like,
what? Okay.
Never ends.
Yeah. So it's got to be broke up into 2 things: panfish or pike.
Yeah.
On Tonka.
Panfish or pike.
Yeah. Ice fishing.
Yeah.
It has to be split up that way. Okay, I can't, because a lot of my trips are multi-species, of course. Okay.
Yep.
I don't go out for walleyes. I don't fish at night. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do. I just don't. I never have. Okay. Younger, I did, but not now.
Yep.
So most of it is just panfish or pike. And there are places where the pike are plentiful, and you can catch some 30s all on tip up stuff.
Yep.
And Tonka has a great pike population for ice fishing. And then of course the panfish side, you can even go to places where first off, you're fishing too deep. When those fish are in those basins and they don't bite.
The panfish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know where you got to be. You got to be in the weeds.
We've learned
seen
that.
some giants in the weeds on Minnetonka.
Well, that's where you got to be.
Yeah.
I know.
And
that's not what you read in the magazines when you're growing up, though.
Yeah.
I debunked all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, I've debunked it. You can't catch fish in clear water. Crap, you can. Okay,
Yeah, walk like
get
10
out
feet
of fish at
offshore.
night. No,
Yeah.
no, you don't.
No.
Okay? It's just, but yeah. So that's how Tonka works. But yeah, people need to fish the weeds more.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree.
Right?
100%.
And I fished the weeds for years. It wasn't until last year having a conversation with Matt. I didn't know about the runways, the roads,
Mm-hmm. The corridors.
the corridors.
Oh, yeah.
I never put that together. I've been doing it for, I can't tell you how long. Back to the 80s, fishing in the weeds. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't want to be with all the people out in the basin. Okay.
Yep.
But I never put two and two together. And then I went, oh man, what did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tonka's got him in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a special fishery.
Yeah.
Larry says corridors. He's relating to the edges and certain pathways that fish use to navigate through the weeds.
Correct.
Don't just go on the top of a giant flat or patch of milfoil and expect to like just land on them randomly. Like there's a reason they're on each side of each stock,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're following the edge. Who knows whatever they're following, but they do it like a trail, so to
Yeah.
speak.
There'll be specific spots on a weed bed where you'll catch all the fish.
Yeah.
And the guy next to you 10 feet away won't even catch one or mark
I'd
one.
say less than that.
Many times do I see that out, especially on Tonka, especially on lakes where in that specific bay. Here's a good example, and I'm not giving away any secrets. Carson's Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many people are in Carson's Bay right now?
Oh my.
It's already getting hit hard, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be careful still. We're still early if you're listening to this. I mean, there's some spots you want to be careful of, but at any given moment in Carson's Bay, holistically, there are tens of thousands of panfish, hundreds of thousands of panfish.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good ones, a lot of tiny ones,
You get the
diversity.
mix.
And I can tell you this, like there are dozens and dozens and dozens of milfoil or weed beds or weed flats in Carson's Bay. But only specific ones hold specific size fish. And on top of that, on those specific pieces of structure, there's only specific spots where the biggest fish will sit and hold. I mean, you saw that firsthand, Drew, when we went out there that
Yeah.
day. I mean, he had a camera down,
Mm-hmm.
and it was almost laughable.
I was like, Matt, you got to drill a hole like 3 feet that way. And just trust me, just wait. You drill a hole, you just wait, and you're like, I got a mark. I'm like, yeah, I'm watching this crappie come in right now. He got it. You set the hook, up comes like a 12.5-inch crappie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, that's a pretty nice crappie for, I looked around, I'm like, we're like surrounded by like 200 wheelhouses right here. Like, how did this thing survive here to get that big? Like, that's a good crappie. And everyone else is catching like bluegills like that big.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how is this thing even living here?
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's hiding in the weeds.
Yeah.
And no one goes up there. And we were with Colt Ringer, and Colt knows enough about Tonka to be super dangerous,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yep.
And he had his wheelhouse out in the basin because he entertains. People come out and they catch the evening crappie
Yeah.
bite, and they're
Watch
catching
a
bluegills all
pike.
days. It's super fun, and we almost had to be careful because I think people kind of knew who we were and what we were doing, and we actually had a UPL event out there that following 2 weeks later, something like that.
Yeah. Didn't you
And-
like have blast off right there? And everyone's just like, we're fishing.
I did, I'll admit, because we found that bite and we had some veterans and a couple sponsors coming out to fish. And I'm like, I don't ever fish during the UPL events.
Mm-hmm.
I usually just hang out.
Yeah.
I leave that for the teams. Well, I had some partners coming out that were in town that were, hey, I'm like, well, we'll go fishing at this one. I got a spot. It's not that far. People have the whole lake. I gave them the biggest playing field in the history of the UPL, that tournament.
Okay.
It wasn't just Carson's Bay.
Mm-hmm.
You could head out in the main lake. I mean, you know what the real estate they had to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh, no one will stay in Carson's Bay. And I'm like, I'm going to put the wheelhouse right on top of this weed clump. And there's like 3 of them. And I message all the teams that week. I'm like, here's where we're going to do the takeoff and the weigh-in. I'll bring my big blue wheelhouse. We'll drop it down. This is where everyone can meet in the morning, yada, yada, yada. It was like the night before one of the teams messages me, do you have to put your wheelhouse right there? And I said, why? Who's asking? What, when, why? Well, We looked at your pictures on social media, and I'm pretty sure we figured out where you were catching those big ones, and it's right where your wheelhouse is, and we found them yesterday pre-fishing.
Get away from my house. I remember.
Go find your own fish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, and I knew how that unfolded, and that they found them that way, and I'm like, come on, dude, just do me a solid. You got the whole lake to fish. Okay, we won't touch it. No problem. I'm like, I'm going to put the wheelhouse there. I got some veterans coming in town from out of state. I want to show them a good time. They're connected to some of the sponsors of the league, and tournament takeoff. Andy Vu's there, knocked outdoors. He's flying a drone, doing the takeoff, doing the whole 9 yards, having fun. And all these teams are lining up for takeoff. Everyone's getting going. And I put the house there, and I put it 20 yards from the juice. I'm like, we'll put the house here. They can fish here. No one will touch it. I'm watching the takeoff, and I'm sending teams out. A couple teams are off to the side. The second I say go on their flight, they put their machines in reverse, pull up right on top of the weed beds and park. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And if you watch the drone footage, it's comical. Because here I am out in the middle, my hand in the air, flight 1, go, flight 2, go. And these guys literally like, and then reverse, and you watch them go back like 40 yards and park on top of the weed beds. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. But they figured it out, you know, like, but there's many of those reed beds on Tonka in every bay. Mm-hmm. There really is. And if you look at an aerial view of Minnetonka in the wintertime, I bet you it'd be laughable at how much of that lake gets completely untouched.
So I grew up fishing Tonka. I was not a good ice fisherman by any means, but like in high school, I'd go monkey around out there, and I really would only fish like Phelps, Carsons, and then I'd like look at grays and go back to Phelps. I'm like, how do I don't even know where to get, like, how do I get around places? Can I go through there? I probably shouldn't. There's a bridge. I'm going to stay away from it. Yeah. So like there are so many untouched places that at least I don't know. I like to think I play it safe, that I just got freaked out. I'm like, I'm just going to go fish where I know. And I'm like one of the guys picking off, 8-inch crappies all night, right? When the big ones can be scattered everywhere.
There still are fire lanes, but there used to be a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And we could get to places a lot easier than you do now.
Yeah.
And it's sad that they went away. I don't know how they got them shut down.
You can drive on and off on winter accesses and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are fire lanes. You can even put your boat in on them.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. So that's how we got around back in the 80s and 90s. And then they
shut them down.
Yeah, and some, they're right next to big mansions in here.
I know, right in their backyard.
They don't like it.
Yeah, but it's public land.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you bought there.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
I mean, if that guy wants me to bring him some crappie fillets, I would.
Right. Yeah.
So talking about ice on Minnetonka, I get this question often. I mean, I'm definitely not here to scare anybody from going on Minnetonka. It's a weird lake for ice conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very inconsistent. And the one thing I always tell people on Minnetonka is I would not go bajan in your pickup truck wherever you think you can go. I think you could get yourself in a pickle. I mean, I know we've had events out there in the dead of winter where ATVs getting them into some hot water because of different spots that either have springs or stay open longer or whatever. So my rule of thumb on Tonka has always been like, just because you can think you can drive across it, still check. There's some pretty good beaten paths. There's a lot of spots that you can tell people are fishing, and you can have a phenomenal fun time out there. But I wouldn't just go bajan across Main Lake.
No,
me personally.
I have driven from Excelsior to Wayzata.
Yeah.
Okay, but not.
But where to go.
Right, but not now. Not until we got 20 inches plus.
Yeah.
There's no way. Because you're driving over a lot of 70 and 80 feet of water. And then Browns Bay goes to 107 feet deep.
Yeah.
And in Crystal, it goes to 113 feet deep.
Yeah. That's where the sturgeon are.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Sturgeon circles. That's why it's thin ice.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Sturgeon.
When I was a kid, until I bet I was 18, Smith's Bay, and there used to be a place called Paul's Landing, and that was the bait shop, and that's Windward Marine, whatever it is. Today it's the boat club.
Mm-hmm.
But they would drive dump trucks out onto the lake, cut big holes in it, put their nets down, and then they would automatically go, and the dump would be up, and it would have an elevator like like a farmer with hay. Okay, so these carp would get funneled into this spot, and the things bam, 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 in, and they'd fill up these dump trucks
With carp.
with carp.
And what else?
Well, the few times I saw it, it was just carp.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had it figured out, and then that went away, and then the carp population went through the roof. It's 50% of the biomass is carp in Tonka.
Yeah.
So just think if we clean that up,
Wow.
how many more bass could there be? How many more walleyes could there be? How many more? Okay.
There are carp everywhere in that lake.
Yeah.
And I still throw at them with a Ned rig.
Yeah. I can.
All the time. Like, there's a big walleye. Nope, not a walleye.
Oh yeah, how many clients have you had over the years want to catch them?
The carp?
Yeah.
Oh, every time they see one.
Me too.
In that partners thing, I had Dave Foster, another one, and then a kid. Somebody was sick, so this like 19-year-old kid came with. And in West Arm, he's using a pink Ned. And he said, Larry, will you cast underneath that tree for me? Oh, sure, man. I skip it underneath there. Dunk. I hand him the rod. I don't know it's a carp yet. This thing is going to beat the band, man. And it's heading right for the dock with 2 wave runners on it, on their own lifts. And I'm keeping the boat away from it, And there's a gal sitting there on her deck watching this whole thing. Get it, net it. I weigh it at 17 pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
Then she says, kill that thing. I said, ma'am, if I kill it, it's going to float up on your shore. Don't do that. Okay. Yeah. The Ned. Yeah, sure, man.
They'll eat it. The boat fishing out there. I see guys doing it quite a bit now, and they fill their boat bellies with carp. And is there a day out there that they actually have a tournament now? Is there?
The West Tonka walleye.
Yeah. They do that, and they hundreds and hundreds of pounds of carp.
It's only like 3,000 pounds they do, but it's still nice that people come, and they still don't let the whole lake be open for some reason. I don't know why. And there's certain bays you can fish at night. If you ever talk to the Edge guy, he can tell you more than I know.
Yeah.
But I would like to hire him to do that night thing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go do it myself. But if he's got the stuff, I shoot a bow. So, but it looks fun.
I know Josh from Thorn Brothers, the old owner of Thorn Brothers, does it quite often, and because he'll message me once in a while, like, "Are you been on Tonka lately?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You see any big carp?"
Yeah.
And
every dock, dude.
They're, I mean, what's the state record? 55.5 pounds. Clearwater, Annandale.
Yep.
There's got to be a 55-pounder in Tonka. I've seen a few that look like platypuses swimming around down there. I mean, they're huge.
They claim there's really only 3 age groups in there. The Sunnies, scar football, eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the big ones just keep getting bigger. I mean, they have no predators, right?
I've seen some, Drew, that are, I don't know how to judge the weight of a carp by looking at it. I just know they're extremely big.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Would you say Clearwater and Annandale and Minnetonka are slightly similar? I mean, there's current, there's deep stuff, diversity.
Yeah, there's. I would say it matches up with some of Minnetonka for sure.
Yeah.
But some of those cattail islands there, you come 10 feet out,
on Clearwater?
Yeah, you don't want to set your decoys there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff on Clearwater that's doesn't get any human interaction too. The way it sets up some of those shallow back bogs and things like that. I think a vast majority of Minnetonka is navigable.
Oh yeah.
It is now anyway. I mean, there's not really, like, you look at like East and West Rush, right? You go to East Rush, you got that whole south end of East.
Yeah.
It doesn't see a boat, doesn't see an angle. I mean,
unless you're Jim Moyna.
Like Moyna will rip in there and get stuck, but
yeah. Well, I watched it.
Yeah, but like Tonka doesn't really have that. Everything is accessible, I feel like, by someone for the most part. I mean, I would say 5% or less isn't. Where other lakes, half the lake is inaccessible to anglers. Like, and then you wonder why some of these freak of nature fish get caught in those systems, because they don't see people.
Yeah.
Ever.
We're blessed here, though.
Yeah.
The water that we have.
Well,
We don't have to go far. Wright County's got 1,000 lakes in it. People don't even know that. Right next to us, 5 miles away. Okay, it's just and little gems, man.
Yeah.
You don't have to go too far away.
Yep.
But
So many days a year are you spending on Tonka now, Larry? If you had to guess.
roughly 150.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're doing a lot of fishing on other lakes too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you,
I do the River,
Yep.
especially in the fall. I do the Mississippi, but I go to Brainerd a few times. I go up to Leech once in a while.
Winnipeg.
Hey, Winnipeg, yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He got addicted to Winnipeg recently.
Jealous.
man, yeah. That
Before you leave here, get some peg spoons. Have you used those ones up there?
The biggest spoon we have, the
It's
big
like,
color
it looks
spoon.
like a hammered salmon spoon almost. Oh
No.
my God,
Yeah.
they were choking it last year.
Okay,
What color?
The red and gold one.
okay.
We weren't even putting minnows on them or nothing. They just come in and just clobber it. Makes no sense. It's wild. The spoon's like the size of this microphone. Just like rip it. You're like, Jesus Christ, I got one.
Yeah.
Because they just come through. They just want to eat.
Yeah, they're a different species of walleye.
You got to be aggressive with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of this.
No.
No.
We're not targeting the crappies and the weeds on Minnetonka.
No.
But
So
yeah, it's I'm going again, man. That's middle of January.
Have you been on Tonka a little bit already?
Not yet, man.
Yeah. What are you hearing out there? I mean, what's the date today? December 17th, 16th,
17th.
17th. What are you hearing for ice conditions? Do you have a current report for?
Yeah, from Todd.
Yeah.
7 was the most he had.
Okay.
This is just a few days ago.
Yeah.
5 to 7 in Phelps area.
Sure.
So Colt, 4 to 6 in Carson's,
Mm-hmm.
and then black. They've been fishing black since Thanksgiving, but it's all hubs.
Yeah.
And if you guys must know that.
Yeah.
But that's what Colt even said on Carson's. He said it's hub city, man. The
Mhm.
whole thing is just, but it's got rough ice. The wind blew all that apart, and it all piled in there.
Yeah.
So he said in time here they're going to need snow to cover that, so you're not.
Yeah. I think they're saying a little bit of snow on Thursday.
Yeah.
Supposed to get a few inches of snow. I guess we'll see. I mean, I was out over the weekend and we had a little bit of slushy snow, then mashed potatoes, and then by end of the day Sunday it was darn near gone. And then yesterday, if you drove by any lake around the Twin Cities, it just looked wet.
Yeah.
Don't think we lost much ice. We found 7-8 inches of ice near Minnetonka, not on Minnetonka. I know there's guys up on like East and West Rush that are talking about 8 to 10 up there already. So we got a little warm spell here, but I think it's supposed to get around 0 this
Chilly
weekend.
this weekend, yeah.
So
And then kind of warm up a little bit during the week, so
yeah,
a little in and out of the cold freeze.
nicer than last year.
Yeah. I was in La Crosse for the weekend. I got one of my daughters lives there, and then her daughter was in Nutcracker. She's a ballerina.
So
Anyway,
you got
it's a traditional thing. Then we had our Christmas, but she lives right off of Onalaska.
We're just staring at it.
Oh yeah. and then Henry, grandson Henry, his buddy's dad and parents own Schaefer's.
Okay.
Okay. The resort.
Mhm.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, I kept looking at that, but they were fishing it, but they weren't out, man. But the northeast side there where she lives, that was just wall to wall people. And then it rained on Saturday down there, constant mist. So
Yeah.
they got snow, and then it all turned to a mist. And I'm just going, don't fall, just don't fall, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, the anticipation this year, I mean, I think a lot of people, we've talked about this on several podcasts ad nausea, but like people kind of feel like they got cheated last year. So we got really good ice here early, safe ice. I mean, I'm not telling anyone listening to go take their truck on the lake anywhere right now, even ATVs side by side, still be cautious. I took the snow dog out this weekend, but
that's a different
a totally different beast. And, I did see some wheelers on the lake, but I would tell you this, what I'm seeing is not all lakes are the same. Even you talking about certain different spots on Lake Minnetonka, you had 7 at most, some spots 4. I mean, it varies. Every lake's different, and every spot on every lake's different. So like the lake we were on, I wouldn't have ripped across Main Lake even on the snow dog. We were in some back channels, back secluded bays, spots that froze up. The wind didn't beat them up, and we were okay. But there's plenty of opportunity to get out and ice fish right now if you want to. And one thing I would tell people is call the local bait shop, call a local fishing store. even a local gas station that sells bait.
Mm-hmm.
You may have a holiday gas station in the corner that sells minnows that they may have talked to 7, 8, 10 people that morning that came back and said, yeah, we're out on Waconia and they're catching them. There's 6 inches of good ice and here's where we went out of and things like that. So this is the time of year to do due diligence and check.
Absolutely. But the thing down at Onalaska, what's popped up the last few years is the guys with the airboats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
the
I
big
know,
perch.
and I know the guy. I know I have some friends who are from Wabasha. That's where they grew up. And they've been catching big perch for 20 some years. And now these guys come up there and they have ruined their secret.
I would argue that
So
some of the most underrated. You're not going to go there and catch a 3-pounder, right? You're not going to catch a Cascade perch or a Gogebic perch. But I would argue it's some of the most underrated perch fishing in the Midwest are these backwaters of these river systems that are relatively untouched. I mean, they are getting into these spots by airboat.
Yep.
I mean, you and I aren't getting into there by ATV ever, most years. I mean, so it does take additional tools to get there. But this fish that I'm seeing these guys catch, and orange is your sweatshirt, beautiful looking fish, pretty special fishery for sure. But that just goes to tell you, I mean, we got good fishing everywhere. And you said right in our backyard, there's more lakes than we can imagine. Every time we talk to anybody that doesn't live here, they're like, you guys are so spoiled. And it's fun. Ice fish. I'm obsessed with ice fishing. I love it. So we talk about it all the time. My kids last night were rigging rods for a Lake of the Woods trip in 4 weeks.
okay, right.
4 weeks away. Dad, what do you think I need on Lake of the Woods? I'm not sure yet. I haven't wrapped my head around it. Pinhead? What do you think?
Probably.
What kind of line?
Gold.
What rod should I use?
Gold pinhead.
I'm
Call
like,
it good.
I'm like, you're going to retie that lure before we even go. You know that, right? Probably. So, but
Isn't that great, though?
that's all part of the fun.
Isn't that great?
It's all part of the fun. Well, we've been talking for an hour and 18 minutes, Larry. Anything you want to let our listeners know before we sign off, and maybe let them know how to reach you, how to book a guide trip, things you're doing.
Oh, okay. First off, I have a radio show called Real Talk Outdoors on Total Country Bob FM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sunday nights.
Yep. And Matt's been on. We had Dave Gens on. Dave Osborne's going to be on this Sunday or next Sunday.
Oh, boy.
And then we got to get you on.
Yeah.
So,
You bet.
but yeah, that's where that's at. But you can get a hold of me. I'm pretty easy. It's either, I'm easy to get to. My website is so old. Don't even go there. Okay. I'm also part of Lake Minnetonka Guides,
Yep.
but you can call me at 612-810-5096.
Yes.
And, yeah, that's just the easiest way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And you have, every time I hop on your guys' radio show, we tend to go off on a lot of fun tangents. It's pretty good.
yeah.
Good entertainment.
And we appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So make sure you tune into that as well. And if you're on Minnetonka and you see Larry, easily approachable. If you're at Lord Fletcher's next summer and he's up there hanging out, I would encourage you at least stop by and say hi. You'll probably give them some kind of tidbit information they didn't know about, and it'll make you a better ice angler or open water angler. So, Larry, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. You're a friend of the Clam family's, friend of mine, friend of Drew's, friend of a lot of ours, and we'll cross paths, I'm sure, again soon.
Yep. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. So.
You too. So there's another episode of the Ice Team podcast. What number is that now?
I think 54.
54 episodes.
Yeah, Durham's been pumping a couple out. So
yeah,
we got
Jason
our
Durham.
northern wings, catching up here.
Yes, sounds like he's going to be doing a few more.
Yep, he's rocking.
So we'll be kicking butt and taking names. And if we don't talk to any one of you before now and then, have a great Christmas. Larry, you two have a wonderful Christmas. Don't send me pictures from Lake Winnipeg till you get back.
Yeah, just don't do that. Don't do that.
My biggest one was only
enough.
25 and a half last year.
Really?
My biggest one.
Yeah.
Go talk to Kayla when you leave here. She knows how to catch those 12-pounders or whatever.
Yeah.
There were 7 over 8.5 to 30, 28.5 to 30 inches
Holy smokes.
between 14 of us.
It's my number one destination.
Yeah, we talked about destinations on a handful of podcasts ago, and Drew was...
Before you sign off,
Yeah.
they're letting houses out there now.
Okay.
And I'm being told that we hope we don't lose somebody
Yep.
because it's a dangerous place.
Yep.
Winnipeg?
Winnipeg. Yeah, they're letting you bring houses and leave them out there.
Letting you bring drop downs.
Mm-hmm.
Dangerous as far as like just the cold
and wind.
and yeah,
they
it's
don't plow
barren.
roads, right?
No,
Yeah.
no.
So yeah, and that's
There's
why
no
they've
one to
never
call.
let them. That's why they've never let them do that.
Huh. So
Okay?
yeah, that's good intel for people going up there. It sounds great. It sounds awesome, but have a plan B.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a beast.
Yes, have a plan B if you are bringing your shack up there. I mean, we take it for granted on Mille Lacs, Lake of the Woods, Red Lake,
Drive a
where you have
car
all these
out, yeah.
commercialized resorts and plowed roads, and if you get in a pickle, you pick up your phone and they come get you. It's not like that up there. So I would say, yeah, definitely even if you're up there in a hub house and you're doing the ice camping thing, have a plan B.
Have a plan.
And and make sure people know you're out there, where you're at, what you're doing. Jeff, definitely good intel.
100%. Remember, it's 105 miles long.
Yeah.
It's a monster.
Okay, so but you're only on the South Bay, but nonetheless, that's still
Yeah.
bigger than Mille Lacs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Much bigger.
So
No. Good ice fishing ahead of us. We're going to have fun, have a great holiday season, and we'll come at you again with another podcast, and you'll know once we post it. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.